Greetings and well met, fellow travelers. I am Gary, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Tales from Modus. On this episode, we are going to be discussing the importance of planning during role-playing games. Now, first off, planning is a very important aspect of any type of encounter or situation that you're going to find yourself in. One of the basic things that you're going to want to remember is to always keep your group's vision and goals as the focus of everything that you're going to do. What I mean by this is that if your group is a group of hardy adventurers that are out for booty, loot, and profit, then your group's when you do your planning and your group's vision are going to be very oriented towards collecting the money, and that's going to be the most important thing. Whereas if you have a group of more nobler adventures, you're going to forego a lot of the wealth that you might get, and in lieu of actually doing really spectacular and good deeds. So whatever your group's vision is, you want to make sure that your plans always lead to its ultimate goal. Now, planning can be done both on the macro scale. So, if you're playing a Star Wars campaign, the plan might be how do we take down the Empire or the Rebels, or it could be done on the micro scale, such as how can we convince a guard to let us through the city gate with no money. Either way, and anything in between, planning is a very crucial key, and you want to make sure that you have open lines of communication with your group in order to be successful at planning. Otherwise, wires are going to get crossed and bad things are going to happen. So it's always a good idea to discuss in character, if possible, what you want to happen and how you want it to happen for anything that you're going to do. Now, this doesn't have to necessarily mean planning on, what's going to happen when you go to a shop and buy some rope and grappling hooks. But and you always want to buy rope to go with a grappling hook, because they're sold separately typically, and you don't want to just look at the picture in the book and say, oh, this grappling hook has rope with it. I don't need to buy it. Make sure you buy the rope. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yes, so in character, plan out what you want to have happen, and come up with at least one contingency plan. Make sure everybody in the group there knows what both the primary and backup plan are. This can be done a lot in character during conversations in a cantina, a tavern, the bar. Those are really good places to kind of do that. Also, during downtime in between encounters when you're resting in the forest or whatever you're going to do, especially if it's something major, like if you're going to assault a castle or take over a ship or something, you want to make sure that you're planning it out, who's doing what, when, and what to do if that doesn't happen, if it doesn't work out. As long as your group is focused on its ultimate mission, no matter how many times your primary plans fail, they'll always be working towards that ultimate goal. And if you're incommunicado, it'll still everybody will still be working towards that in one way or another. But it's really important to have a tight vision on what you want to have happen. Everyone should also know their part in the plan, i.e., to say that if you have a wizard, they should know that their role in the plan is to, say, cause a distraction and keep the palace guards at bay, while the fighter and the cleric take on the evil Lich King in the center of the keep. Just so people know what they're doing, so the wizard doesn't get distracted trying to help the group, and then all the other guards rush in and make the matter much worse. So it's important to know your part and to do your part. And a lot of times that sometimes means that the camera of action moves away from you and you're not the star at all times. That's okay. If you're a role player, that's going to happen to you, and just roll with it, because if you're doing a support role, in whatever the plan is. It's an important role, but you may not have the most action-oriented position in that. But it's important that you follow the plan, and which will ultimately lead to the vision. If you do this, your group is going to be far more successful in its endeavors because everybody's going to be working in harmony and conjunction with each other, as opposed to just sort of a chaotic mass of psychotic actions and murder, which groups can devolve into if they're not careful. But planning is one of the keys to success within a group because it allows you to focus everyone's energies. And also, keep in mind that the ease or difficulty with planning and communication is also going to be based on your setting. So if you are playing in a modern or futuristic society that has, cell phones or communicators or whatnot, planning can be a little bit easier because you don't have to, you can adjust the plan a lot easier typically. Whereas if you're playing in a older or medieval setting, the planning really has to be tight before you go into it because you don't have radios or cell phones or you may have magic or telepathy or something, but you want to make sure that you're keeping the plan together. So one time our group had a event where there was an evil warrior, and he got a rod of lordly might, which if you're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, if you're not familiar with it, rather, it allows you to control other people. I kind of modified this because in game it would have been far too powerful, so I just made it so it absolutely could control just one person, and they could change that at will. So the group went into the cave where the bad guy was, and they were kind of at a disadvantage because there was not only this guy that was a pretty good fighter, but he also had an ogre with him as a kind of a bodyguard. And so the group went in there, and it was there was a barbarian, a wizard, a cleric, and a fighter in the group of PCs that went in there. And of course the bad guy instantly sees the barbarian decked out in this really big guy with a really big weapon. He's like, "Submit!" And the barbarian fell under his control. And so that created a lot of chaos within the group. But everybody kind of really stuck to their plans. Like the cleric had a tower shield, and so he kind of stood in front of the wizard and defended him while the wizard tried attacking the barbarian, trying to get him to come to his senses. And then the fighter engaged the antagonist and wrestled with him over control of the scepter. In the end, it actually worked out for the group. They defeated both the ogre and the villain. So it was a very successful. I think there was only a one-shot, but everybody had their part down. They knew what they needed to do. The cleric needed to defend the wizard because the wizard just doesn't have a lot of health. And the fighter went and took out the head of the snake, and they all kind of tried to accomplish the same goal. And planning is very important in that. So if you have a group and you have time before an encounter or a major event, planning will really save your bacon, and I can't emphasize that enough. Well, until next we meet, stay safe.